Hey out there, this is Friday, January 19th, 2018, and it's just about 10 minutes before 9 in the morning here in Northern California. And as usual, I want to talk about a lot of different stuff. But when I post a series of videos, as I've been doing for quite some time on a weekly basis, I get to ruminate over the last series before I do the one I'm doing currently, as is the case regularly. And when I do, I try to correct any mistakes I make and make any apologies that need to be made, and hopefully progress in terms of being cogent and getting the message I really, really want to get through across. And so I revisit some of the stuff I talk about often. I know last week I was pretty hard on elitists and elitism, and that hasn't changed. I abhor elitism, and it is a real conundrum for a guy like me. The older I get, the more anti-elitist I get, the more of an equalitarian I become. I'm a devout egalitarian, and I think it's a beautiful thing that I wish that everybody would take advantage of. And it really hurts me when others don't, because there's, of all the things that I don't like about my personality that I would tweak and change, believing in equality is not one of those things. That is something, if I could impart one thing to everybody, it would be that spirit of egalitarianism. And it's very consistent with the Bible. If the word had existed back in the day, it would have been used. But it didn't exist. But the term freedom did. And to me, if there is another synonym besides equalitarian for egalitarian, it would be somebody that devoutly believed in freedom. And by freedom, I mean universal freedom, because freedom cannot be reserved exclusively for any segment of civilization, society. But it has been, as we all know, as a matter of fact, that's how it is. With all the hereditary wealth in the world, we know that fortunes have been passed on for God knows how long, perhaps thousands of years, perhaps since the invention of money. And it was an invention. It was an artificial construct under the pretext of facilitating exchange. It was a method of facilitating theft, is all it was. From the top money lovers, the root of all evil is the love of money, and these are the top money lovers that love all the accoutrements that come with money, right? The power, the glory, the control. I mean, it's everything. Materialism. I mean, it's the ambrosia of the evil ones, of the satanic spirit of this world. And it's antithetical, of course, to the Spirit of God. But nonetheless, we can look at things and say, yes, it's been a very elitist existence for a long time, with the power and the control and the money residing in the hands of a few people. And there's been periods in history when it looked like we were going to make progress, like with JFK in America. And see, if America could set a good example, it'd be like in A Bug's Life, where one ant is allowed to stand up, then they can all stand up, and all the nations of the world, since America is the most powerful nation in the world and has been for a long time, then you understand how that works with the world reserve currency and all that. It's all tied into this, this super mighty military that we have. That's why we are the world reserve currency, because it's a consensus of the world, the other countries on the planet, that, America has that title. And so we're very influential, is the point, as Americans in America. But of course, it wasn't the right time, because God allowed JFK to be murdered. So it wasn't the right time to set the captives free. Again, it all relates to equality, universal equality, and that knowing what to look for. If you're a believer in the Bible, you profess Christianity, then you're looking for freedom. You're looking to set the captives free. And in order for that to mean anything to you, then you've got to understand how the captives are held down, how they are chained, how they are enslaved, and understanding the relationship of money in every person's life in this world, okay? In this beast system, essentially. It's a money-based unreality run by these top money lovers, of money masters of misery. And we all have to struggle through this paradox, and that's kind of what I wanted the theme of today's video series to be about, is contending with this acute myriad of various paradoxes and dichotomies and conflicts of the psyche, and these kind of things we face as humans. We're incredible creatures. I mean, I have to commend everybody that continues to cope. And I mean that with every fiber of my being. I mean, just keep on coping. You're going to learn more. I'm going to learn more. We're going to learn more as a species. And we're going to grow in the way that God, if we don't openly reject God's instruction, then we will find our way. If we are sincere in our heart, and we say, God, let your will be done on earth, not my will or any other man's will, we're going to find it. We're going to understand what it means to be universally free, and to discover that what we've been told all along in Scripture, through the Spirit of truth and wise men through the ages, is that humanity is quite capable of living free. We don't need, to be enslaved. We don't need these elitist monsters running our lives. That's pretty much sums up what I'm trying to say here. And that we can and will be free someday, have no doubt. That, as difficult as it is for me to watch things unfold and get worse and worse, and that's just from empirical evidence, from observing through the decades. My whole life, things have been regressing. We've been on a trajectory downward in terms of our standard of living in America, because they've debased our currency through inflating our cost of living artificially, unnaturally, inorganically, through manipulating markets and fixing prices. This is theft. See, the money is being used as a means to facilitate the theft of the wealth of a nation. And what is a nation? A nation consists of the people. That's it. We're not talking about simply the real estate. No, that's very superficial in terms of a nation, the geographic real estate. No, we're talking about the human beings, the spirit of that nation. And to steal the wealth of a people like in America was tricky. These people had to be very conniving and very diabolical. They had to be very cunning and crafty and stealth in the way they operated. But sometimes they had to be brazen, like assassination of the head of the state of America. That was brazen. That was a coup. We had a coup in '63. We haven't had America back. And one nail after another has just been pounded in our coffin in that time. And this is what I really want people to understand, is that as much as I hear these people just want to, vaunt America and, we're just the wonderful and, this whole, I'm the most patriotic guy you could ever meet. Don't get me wrong. It's just that constructive criticism is uber important to understand, okay? Because we're turning communists and fascists right under the noses of these people that I think they're, whether they know it or not, they're involved in pseudo-patriotism. Now, I'm not associating what I'm saying with Donald Trump at all. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's term just began, okay? He's just a drop in the bucket at this point in history. Okay, I'm not saying that the spirit isn't changing, but I still believe the train has to stop, okay, and Trump hasn't successfully stopped it. And the evidence for that statement is that we're still seeing the cost of living go up. As far as I know, here in California, and of course, California is leading the way. We're the guinea pig state. They do all the testing here first. They push the envelope as far as they can here first. The rest of the nation is behind the curve. We're losing our standard of living. We're losing prosperity. The middle class is in decline. It's shrinking. As fewer and fewer people are able to enter the middle class home ownership standard of living, okay? So it's getting further and further out of reach for people still here. And if you think that's a good thing, think again, okay? Contrary to popular belief, high housing costs are not a good thing. So this is the evidence I can put forward to tell you, look, the train hasn't stopped yet. If I'm talking to Alex Jones, listen, man, I mean, I'm just saying, you will never meet a more patriotic guy, okay? I love America. I know it's a great country, and I've lived in other countries. But the point is that we are screwing it up everywhere, okay? And California is probably leading the way to screw it up. But then again, there's other high rent, high housing cost states too, like New York, right? I understand what Chicago is high. We know there's just high cost areas, some popular big cities and whatnot across the country. But it's still simmering. It's still, they're getting every penny they can out of your housing. They're debasing your housing dollar as much as they're pushing the envelope. And we're pouring, the government, we are pouring $50 billion a year into this problem and making it worse. Under the guise that it's a welfare subsidy, it's supposed to make it better. I'm talking about this HUD Section 8 housing program, this welfare program. And people talk about food stamps. I mean, if you're living in New York and your flat is, $1,500, $2,000, whatever, and you're trying to get welfare because you can't afford the rent, okay, because you got a minimum wage job, you're clearing what, $1,200 a month? I don't know what the minimum wage is in New York. But you get my point, is that there's no way the math doesn't jibe. You can't do it. You can't pay your rent. You can't live in New York. So the government steps in with HUD Section 8, right? This welfare subsidy, federal money, comes in to New York, and they will cover, 90% maybe if they have to, okay? If you qualify and can get in, okay? Because there's waiting lists, I understand, in some areas 10 years. In a lot of areas of California, they just don't even put you on a list anymore. That's it. Sorry, they spent everything they have now on taking care of the people that made it in. So if you didn't make it onto the Section 8 bandwagon in time, then you're lost, okay? And there's been affirmative action like Mothers and Children First, we all understand, right? Well, that's the way the men would want it anyhow. But, it is open discrimination against the male of the species, let's face it. So the point is that we're in a lot of trouble in America. And in order for us to ever hope to extricate ourselves from this, we've got to understand the issues. We've got to understand how we're being enslaved, how we are enslaved, how we're being tyrannized, okay? And if people don't understand that, then there's how you even going to struggle and try to extricate yourself. You're just going to go along and say, well, I guess that's not the problem. Inflation, I mean, I'm supposed to understand that when I get out of high school, that's just the norm, and I need you just to learn how to accept it. This is social Darwinian economic principles. Dog eat dog, rat race, whereby they justify this idea that your nut has to keep getting harder and harder to crack, and the bar has to get harder and harder to reach, that there has to be more and more poverty, that there has to be an ever greater perpetual wealth imbalance, and just get used to it. Suck it up and go with the flow, right? That's what we're basically taught. I mean, it's unspoken. They don't say it like that. But essentially, isn't that they want you to figure out that's how it has to be? So just get used to it, man. Yeah, it's going to get harder and harder, and you're going to just watch more and more people die out on the streets. And yes, it's because we can't extract these exorbitant housing costs if we couldn't point to people dying, and that you weren't living in mortal fear that you're the next guy living out under the bridge and dying out in the cold. So just shut your mouth, shut your trap. Don't listen to a clown like me, and just go with the flow and don't talk about, I mean, even Alex Jones, I mean, as much as they bitch about food stamps, a couple $100 a month,